Good morning. Today we are learning our third type of way to solve systems of equations. The first way was by graphing, meaning that we graphed two lines and wherever they crossed, that was our answer. So we always list that answer in the form x, y. Our second way we learned was substitution, meaning we wanted x by itself or y by itself, and we plugged whatever that was equal to into the other equation. We still ended up with an answer in the form x, y. It's just another way to solve the same type of equations without graphing. Today we're going to learn the third way, which is by elimination. One word that you see inside the word elimination is eliminate. Would be, instead of here, you'd have an E. Eliminate. We mean to get rid of or take away. So if I have an x and I eliminate it, now I don't have any x's. So what we're going to do is we're going to eliminate either our x's or our y's in our equation so that we only have the other letter left so we can solve. So let's take a look at our first slide. It says, when solving a linear system, meaning more than one equation, you can sometimes add or subtract the equations to obtain a new equation with one variable. It says in, but like with one variable. This method is called elimination. We're getting rid of one of our letters. So an easy way to do this is to look at your two equations, making sure that they're both in standard form, meaning x and y are on the same side of the equal sign. So these are both in standard form. X is y's number. X is y's number. And just like in elementary school when we learned to add this way, like 12 plus 15, we added vertically. 2 plus 5 is 7, 1 plus 1 is 2. We're going to do that same thing with these equations. We are going to add or subtract them. Now, this one, we need to decide, are we going to get rid of the x's or the y's? Well, the x's are the same number, so I'm going to add them together because a positive 2 and a negative 2 will eliminate or go away. So those are eliminating when we're adding our equations together. Then we have 3y plus 5y gives us 8y. And then there's an equal sign. And then 11 plus 13 should give us 24. We combined these two equations together or eliminated them by adding or subtracting them together. And then we just have this equation to solve. So all we have to do is divide by 8, and we get y equals, well, 8 times 3 is 24. So there's y, but remember we need our answer as a point x comma y. So we know y is 3. We just need to plug this y back into one of our two original equations to figure out what x is. So you can use either equation. I'm going to erase this so I can see what my equations were. I'm going to use the one where everything is positive. If you use the other equation, you'll get the same answer. So it says 2x plus 3y, and y is really a 3, equal to 11. You can do this below if you don't have enough room here. So I'm going to solve this. 3 times 3 is really just 9. So we have 2x plus 9 equal to 11. And then just solve. Subtract 9. Those eliminate. We get 2x equal to, well, 11 minus 9 is 2. And then divide by 2. We get x equals 1. So we have 1 comma 3, x and y. So we got this answer by adding our two equations together. So this next one, if we add these together, nothing will go away. 4 plus 5 will give us 9, 3 plus 3 will give us also 6, and then here this will go away, but we want either the x's or the y's to go away. So instead of adding our equations together like we did over here, we are going to subtract them. But if we're going to subtract, we have to subtract all three numbers. So here this becomes a negative 5, this becomes a negative 3, but here two negatives will become a positive. So now we're subtracting 4 minus 5 gives me negative 1x. 3 minus 3 eliminates. That's this method, elimination. And then 2 plus 2 now is a 4. So we just have to solve this. We just have to divide by negative 1 to get x by itself. 4 divided by negative 1 is negative 4. So let's plug this back into one of our two equations. I would suggest using the one that you didn't change, but it really doesn't matter. If you want to use the ones with the negatives, that's fine. If you want to use the original equation, that's also fine. I'm just going to use the first one. It says 4x, and x is really a negative 4, plus 3y equal to 2. Well, 4 times negative 4 is negative 16, plus 3y equals 2. So we want y by itself, so I'm going to add 16 to both sides. Those eliminate. So we have 3y equals, and 16 plus 2 more is 18. And then last, the opposite of multiplying by 3 is divide by 3. So we get y equals, and 18 divided by 3 is 6. So my answer in the form x comma y, x is negative 4 and y is 6. This is where these two lines would cross if we were to graph them. Alright, let's try a couple more. Think about first, am I going to have to add or subtract these equations together? This is 6 and negative 2, so those aren't going to go away. But here we really have 1y and 1y. If I add those together, nothing's going to happen. So instead, I need to subtract. So if I'm going to subtract this, I need to subtract the whole equation. So subtracting here, these two negatives become a positive. This becomes a negative 1y, and these two negatives also become a positive. So now we're going to combine these two together. 6 plus 2 is 8x. 1 minus 1 is gone. And then 39 plus 17 now, we got to add those up. 9 plus 7 is 16. And then 3 plus 1 is 4, plus 1 more is 5. We have 56. And then we need to solve this, just divide by 8. So x equals, well, 7 times 8 is 56. So x is 7. And then we need to pick one of our two equations. I'm just going to pick the first one because we didn't do anything to that equation. It says 6x, and x is 7, plus y equals 39. You could put a 1 with the y, but you really don't need it because we know y is really just 1y. Well, 6 times 7 is 42. So we need to get y by itself, so just subtract 42. It was a positive, so we subtracted. And we have y equals, there's more negatives. The difference between 42 and 39, well, we can just count. 39, we have 40, 41, 42. So that's 3 numbers. Different signs we just subtracted. 49 or 42 minus 39 is 3, and there's more negatives. So our answer in the form xy should be 7, negative 3. Now this next one looks a little bit different. All of the ones we've had so far are in standard form, where we have x and y on the same side. You have to have them in this form in order to eliminate. So here we have x and y. Well, here we have x and y, but they're not on the same side. So I need to move this y over to the other side. So to move it, I'm going to subtract 3y. And I'm just going to rewrite that equation over here. So these are going to be gone. We'll have our x's first, 5x, and then minus 3y, 5x minus 3y, equal to now 30. And this equation didn't change, so I'm just going to rewrite it. 6x minus 3y equals 36. So those are my two equations I can use now. Now I see that the y's have the same number 3, but they're both negatives. And we don't want that. We need one to be a positive, so I'm going to subtract instead of add. So this becomes a negative 5x. This negative becomes a positive, and this 30 becomes a negative. So combine them, 6x minus 5x gives me 1x, or just x. 3 minus 3 eliminates, and we have 36 minus 30 is just 6. And then divide by 1. You don't really need to, because 6 divided by 1 is still 6. So we know x is 6. We need to figure out what y is. You can use the equation we rewrote, or one of the original ones. I always like to use one of the original ones, so I make sure I didn't make any mistakes when I solved. So I'm just going to use the second one. You can pick the first one if you want. It says 5x, which is 6, equal to 3y plus 30. Well, 5 times 6 is really 30. And then solving for y, subtract 30 to get rid of that 30. This one just so happens that we get 3y equal to 0. That's okay. If we divide by 3, 0 divided by 3 is still 0. So y is 0. So our point, x is 6 and y is 0. This is our answer. So next, same thing. We need x's and y's on the same side. So I'm going to move this x over to the other side. I'm going to subtract the 3x. Move it over there. So we're going to have negative 3x plus 4y equal to 14. So if you want to write them next to each other, it doesn't matter which one's on the top and the bottom. If you just want to rewrite this one down below instead of rewriting them both next to each other, that's fine. So I'll have 8x minus 4y equals negative 4. Now I can add or subtract these two equations together. So I don't need this anymore. I just have these two equations. So x's are different numbers, not going to go away. But our y's will go away because it's positive and negative. So we're just going to add our equations together. Negative 3 plus 8, there's more positives, so it's a positive 5x. 4 plus negative 4 is 0, those eliminate. And 14 plus negative 4, or 14 minus 4 is 10. So just divide by 5, and we get x equals 2. Now we just need to plug it back into one of these equations. I like this second equation because the x and the y are on different sides. We already know what x is, so if we just plug this in, we're really close to having y all by itself. If you use the first equation, you'll get the same answer. So 3 times x, which is 2, and then plus 14. Well, we know 3 times 2 is 6. So 6 plus 14, add those together, we should get 20. And then last, the opposite of multiply by 4 is divide by 4. So we have y equal to, well, 20 divided by 4 is 5. So our answer in the form xy is 2, 5. Alright, I would like for you to try this one on your own, and then click play to see if you got it right. I can see that the x's are going to eliminate because they're the same number. However, if I add them, they're not going to go away, so I have to subtract them. If I subtract the 7, I have to subtract this, which becomes a positive, and this, which is now a negative. So 7 minus 7 eliminates. Negative 2 plus 3 now, there's more positives. That's 1, and 5 minus 4 is also 1. Well, if you divide by 1, we still get y equals 1. And then we just have to plug it back in. I'm going to use the top equation. You can use either one. So 7x minus 2 times y, which is 1, equal to 5. Well, negative 2 times 1 is still negative 2, so we have 7x minus 2 equals 5. So we want x by itself, get rid of your addition or subtraction, so add 2. We get 7x equal to 7. And then last, divide by 7. Get rid of this multiply. So we get x equal to, well, 7 over 7 is 1. So this one, your answer is 1, 1. All right, flip over to the next page. We have one word problem today, and this is it. It says you are renting a floor sander rental, and this is a floor sander. It's used to sand the floors to make them smooth. So like in our gym, they sand the floors and then reseal it every summer. So you have a nice gym surface to play basketball and other sports on. So a rental company charges a flat fee, that's like a one-time fee, of X amount of dollars. They don't tell us, but we know it's the letter X. It costs X dollars for a floor sander rental, plus Y dollars per hour of the rental. One customer rents a floor sander for 4 hours and pays $63. Another customer rents a floor sander for 6 hours and pays $87. So we need to write two equations, because we've been working with two equations using graphing, substitution, or elimination. And we're going to have to find the flat fee, so find X, and find the cost per hour, which is Y. And then they have a prediction on the second one. So first, let's write our two equations. Both customers have to pay this flat fee, but they're also paying a certain number of dollars per hour. The first customer, one customer, rents a floor sander for 4 hours and pays $63. Well, we know that customer has to pay the flat fee, X, plus Y number of dollars every hour. Well, they're renting this one for 4 hours, so 4 times the number, or the cost, to rent it. And they pay a total of $63. The second person, another customer, rents a floor sander for 6 hours and pays $87. Well, they still have to pay that flat fee, plus they're renting it for 6 hours times the cost per hour, which is Y. Has to equal $87. So all we have to do is solve this. So if I were you, let's use elimination. That's a strategy we've been working on today. We know these are both ones. If you want to put them there, you can. But instead of adding, because that would give us 2, we need to subtract. If I'm going to subtract this one, I have to subtract this and subtract this. So 1 minus 1 eliminates. 4 minus 6 is negative 2y. And 63 minus 87, I know it's going to be negative. These are different signs, so you're subtracting. You can really do 87 minus 63. That gives us 24. Or plug that in your calculator. And then divide by negative 2. Those eliminate, and we should get y equal to, now a positive, well, 24 divided by 2 is 12. So that's y, which is the cost per dollar. So we can put it $12 per hour. And then we also need to figure out x. I'm going to use this first equation because we didn't mess with it yet. It says x plus 4y, and y is 12, equals 63. Well, 4 times 12, you can plug that in your calculator. Should give you, oops, not 52, 48. So solving for x, we just have to subtract 48. So we get x equals, well, you can count up or subtract here, 63 minus 48. We can't subtract 3 minus 8. 13 minus 8 should give us 5, and 5 minus 4 is 1. So x represented our flat fee, so it's $15 for the flat fee to rent the sander. So that was part A. We figured out the flat fee and the cost per hour. Now they just want to know how much would it cost someone to rent a sander for 11 hours. Well, they'd have to pay We'll do part B down here. They'd have to pay the flat fee, so 15, plus $12 per hour, and they're renting the sander for 11 hours. So 11 times 12 will give us that flat fee, or I'm sorry, not the flat fee, the total amount. They want to know how much would it cost. Well, 11 times 12, I would plug that in my calculator. I know this has to be greater than 100. It's going to be 132 if you use your calculator. And then add 15. If you want to add 15 this way, you may as well. That should give you 147. So it would cost you $147 to rent this sander for 11 hours, all day basically. Alright, this last one has some fractions here, but don't let that confuse you. We're going to solve it the same way. The 7 and the 2 aren't going to eliminate if we add or subtract, so let's get rid of the negative 1/3 y's. They're both negatives, so that's not going to go away. So we need to subtract instead of add, because here now two negatives are going to make a positive. And these two negatives are also going to make a positive. This is our last problem. So now add them up, or combine our two equations. 7 minus 2 is 5x. Negative 1/3 and positive 1/3 eliminate. And negative 29 plus 9 is negative 20 still. There's more negatives. And then divide by 5. We get x equals a negative 4. Now our last step is just to plug it back in. I actually like the bottom equation better because they're smaller numbers than the top one. And they both have 1/3, so you can't really get rid of that. You could, if you wanted to, multiply both of these equations by 3 at the beginning. We could get rid of that 1/3. We'll learn how to do more stuff like that in our next lesson. So I'm going to just use this bottom equation. It says 2x minus 1/3 y equals 9. But instead of x here, I'm going to plug in what x is, which is negative 4. So 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. And then we have minus 1/3 y equal to 9. And we just need to get rid of our number here, so I'm going to add 8. So we have negative 1/3 y equal to, well, 8 plus 9 is going to give me 17. And then last, to get rid of our fraction, we need to multiply by the reciprocal. So multiply by 3 over negative 1 times 3 over negative 1. So y equals 17 times 3 is going to give me 51. And we're dividing by negative 1, which is really still 51. It's just now negative. So my answer is negative 4, comma, negative 51. All right. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, go ahead and get started on your homework, which is out of the book. This last problem, you don't have to do all the parts. I think it goes like 42A, like part A, part B, part C, and so on. You only have to do part A. Otherwise, you have to do all of these. Just number 35, and then all of those.